So, JD, tell me about this beautiful old Telecaster.
Well, you and I, our relationship started with these planks of wood. So, this is a 55 all original Telecaster that is just whooped. And I, on this last tour, pulled out my old RS that I played all those years with Don Kelly. And a really good friend of mine, he saw some video of that and he said, "What are you doing playing that again?" And I said, "Well, I'm really liking finding where a Telecaster will fit into what we're doing, because there's so much my history with Telecasters and my love of it, and it's just again, like much like with the deluxe reverb, just trying to find where that could fit in, and actually kind of enhance what we're doing in the group." And so he said, "Man, I got a guitar that I think you're gonna like," and I said, "I bet you do." And so he sent this up to New York because right in the middle of the last tour, we were in New York City for a few days, and so he sent this up to New York, and I went and I got it and I set it up and I used it that night, and I love this thing. So we have since we're gonna have to work something out because this thing is great, and I this thing was so. It had sat in somebody's garage. It's from St. Louis, so they say. This guitar lived most of its life in St. Louis, and it lived in somebody's garage for quite a long time. And under here was just a mess. The original switch, you couldn't even, like, it was rusted together. So instead of cleaning it, I just went ahead, because it would have taken me forever to get that sucker to work again. I just put a new switch in, and then I actually went and hung out with our good friend Tom Bukovac, and I was going to set it up a little bit more properly, where I was wasn't at a sound check or something, set the pickup heights and so on, and we ended up doing the thing where you take the tone control off the neck pickup, which on old guitars like this, you did it to yours.
Yeah.
On old guitars like this, a lot of times, or old guitars like this, old Fenders, Telecasters, a lot of times the neck pickup will actually be hotter than the bridge pickup, which is not necessarily a good thing, because it can make this sound muddy. And if you back it away from those strings too much, it'll get really thin and it won't sound as good. So taking the tone control off it really helps a lot. And then also what's good about that is, the treble pickup. Vince Gill told me a long time ago how they can be new too, but on his old telly he's played forever, how he always has the tone control just rolled off just a little bit. And on a good old one like this that's real stringy and woody sounding, it really does kind of just do it, So I just leave that down just a little bit, and then this is unaffected by that. And it's got a great neck, and I'm really having fun playing it. It's been really good. It's really kind of become an every night guitar.
Yeah. So what kind of tunes do you prefer to use this guitar as opposed to the other ones?
I like to use this one for. There's a song on our current record called "Please," which I've gotten in the habit of doing by myself without the band now. and I use this on that because then in the middle of that song, it's kind of like a soul tune, and then in the middle I'll just play solo guitar without accompaniment, and I'll kind of, every night it's different, but it kind of explore that kind of somewhat of the chicken picking kind of stuff, but it's just wherever I end up going that particular night, and it's just, this really works well for that. There's another song from our current record. It's an old Elmore James song called Stranger's Blues that I like using this on. Initially, I was playing it in standard tuning like it's on the record. And then, but I wasn't feeling comfortable with it, and it wasn't doing, and then I got it in my mind to put this in an open tuning and capo and kind of do it and play the whole thing with slide and do it kind of in more of a Ry Cooder kind of a vein. And so I love using this for that because it's you know, it's, you know, because I just, you know, you and I both could talk about Ry Cooder all day long, but it's like, that's something that, you know, up to this point, especially with slide guitar, I've really kind of plowed a furrow that, you know, with Duane Allman and stuff is a huge influence. But at this particular moment, I'm being much more drawn to tunings and cleaner slide sound that has more in common with Ry Cooder or something. Just because that's something, again, like where my taste is kind of going in a certain direction. So I use it for that. And then there's a ballad from the record called I'll Always Be Around, that this, playing a slow ballad, it's just got this beautiful thing. You know, it's just really nice. And, you know, I mean, you know, obviously Steve Cropper being one of the earliest influences on me, it's been really nice to use this on that. And there's a couple other ones I've used that I use it on, because with me it's kind of random. We don't write set lists, and we usually have somewhat of an idea of what we're going to do each night, but it's never the same, really. So, you know, one night I might play this for half the show, and the next night I might only play it for 2 songs or something, depending upon what songs we're doing. Or if I'm just really comfortable on the 335 or something like that. Like I also, like, sometimes I just kind of get like a race car driver. I'm just kind of in the zone and just don't bother me.
Why switch?
Yeah. But then the other thing we were just talking about is we don't really play a lot of covers in our band. But we started doing some Dylan covers, like as an encore. And so we've been doing Maggie's Farm a bit. And so of course I play this on that and do the Bloomers, or try to do the Bloomers G.E. Smith thing, because that's the other thing. You know, that's the other thing is, you know, G.E. is a huge influence too, and well, Mike was obviously a huge influence on him. But you know, when I was a little kid, you know, G.E. was the guy, man. He was, you know, every Saturday night he'd be up there with a Telly or a 345 or a Firebird or a Flying V, and he'd always have that cool.
He'd have blonde.
the blonde. You know, and so a lot of this kind of stuff, you know, like, you know, I haven't really talked about his influence that much, but you know, he was an influence, especially for a 90s kid like me, you know. So anyway, so I kind of try and do that, you know, when we play some Bob, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool. Well, let's hear a bit of this guitar.
Sounds good.
Okay, JD. Now this is a real 1960 Les Paul. This is a burst.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where in the world how did you end up getting to play this guitar?
I don't know. That's it. It's crazy. It's, truth is stranger than fiction. The guy, there's all these friends I made in the vintage world, collectors, guys that have been in,
And a lot of them like to remain anonymous.
Yes, and this one in particular is from Texas.
Yes.
And he's anonymous. And he is known as the anonymous Texas collector.
Yes.
And so anyway, it's just nuts, man. Some of these guys, here's the thing I will say about this is that most of the friends that I have, which I have many of them now all over the world, like all over Europe, all over this country, that kind of like are in this circle of people who own these, who own, in some cases, own multiples.
Yeah.
And these are also gentlemen that they might own a couple or many bursts, but then own Fenders and this and that and the other. There's some of the most gracious, kind, generous people. And it's actually been really great to be befriended by some of these people because it really exemplifies that when you're kind of blessed with affluence, how one can choose to be.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these people in particular, and this gentleman is one of them, not because he gave me this guitar to play, which I'll get into in a minute, but because of the guy that I know he is, because I see what he does. He's a good friend of mine, and I see how he conducts himself. And, a lot of these guys do ridiculously generous things and do it anonymously, which is, I think, the lasting lesson there is that, you don't do something kind for the credit. You do it for the deed itself. And a lot of these guys I've seen them just do it, and it just takes my breath away when the acts of random acts of kindness I've seen some of these individuals do. So anyway, in regards to this, there was an event for Gibson a few years ago when they released the Southern Rock tribute guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there with a bunch of real stars and real musicians, and it was a really, really great night. And the gentleman who owns this, he was there. He was kind of a honored guest. And after the show was over, which was a great show, we all went out to a big dinner afterwards, and at the Hermitage Hotel here in Nashville, which is like the really fancy, nice hotel here. So we're sitting down there, all these guys, which a lot of them are friends of mine and other friends of mine that were artists on the show and stuff. And so at one point, he got up from the table and he went and he grabbed this case and he took it over and he goes, "Simo," he said, "check this out." And, even at that time, I'd already seen dozens of real ones, and the path of exposure to stuff like this had well begun by that point. And he said, and so I opened the case and I figure, he's showing me the one he brought or whatever, And so I'm looking at it and, he explained to me, he's like, I just got it back. Derek Trucks had it for the last couple of years and he hadn't really been using it. So, I just got it back. And what do you think of that? And I was playing it and going, man, that's really great, And then he, I put it down, like, man, that's really cool, man. That's a great guitar, I think, And then he's like, well, take it. I said, what do you mean, take it? And he said, take it. I said, well, what do you mean by that? What's that mean? And he just started laughing. He's like, take it and play it, man. Take it and play it. I brought it for you to take. And I said, and I didn't, I'd had people be nice to me and stuff before, but nothing like, that was ridiculous. And I didn't really know how to deal with that, And so I cried like a little baby and I gave him a big hug and I just, and it's not like he was saying, I'm giving this to you for all of time and that if you want to turn around and buy a house with it, do it.
Yeah.
But he was essentially, just saying, take this and play it, and that's it. and so I have, and I brought this thing all over the world now. Um, you know, um, and this thing's been everywhere, and a lot of this wear now is from me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've always gone to him and said, if you want it back, like I don't consider this my guitar at all, you know, but he's been incredibly gracious, and it's been the joy of my life getting to not only have access to something like this, but to form a connection with it and make music with it. And more importantly, the greatest gift he's given me in this guitar really is being able to let other people experience it. Because, usually every show, there's someone my age or a little younger or whatever that, I can tell, you can tell when somebody's into this stuff, you can get, and, and so it's really fun to, be like, well, here, man, have a go, check it out, you know, because, at the end of the day, they are just instruments, and things that are worth something are only worth something because we as humans assign value to them, and now granted, I've had the opportunity to play some insanely amazing instruments in my life thus far, which is something I never really thought I would, never really thought about. But in the end, it's what you do with it, and that's the other thing, is that exposure to great old instruments, really their value lies in the inspiration you get from them. Because, you know, uh, something sitting on a stand or, hanging on a wall or whatever, it's like, it's only worth something if you do something interesting with it.
Yeah.
And that demystification process has been a huge lesson for me too, because the music comes from somewhere. Music, creativity, all that stuff, it comes from somewhere else. It doesn't come from us. We're at best we're able to receive it, but it comes from somewhere else, like real music. Again, like, I think that one can learn how to approximate something, someone can imitate something, but to actually like convey something of that's expressive and real and heartfelt and say something that comes from somewhere else. And all an instrument can do is what you use it for. And if something inspires you, then you know then it's priceless. But if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't inspire you, it's worthless.
Right.
And so that, and it can be an old Les Paul, it could be anything. you know but it's the inspiration you draw from it in the end. And it just so happens that I think one of the things with older guitars is they have stories. They have stories, and new instruments can have stories if you use them enough to give them a story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if like, that's one of the things that I don't have a lot of. I don't really understand the concept of, like, if you have a rack of new guitars and you're playing a different one every song or something, and they're all new guitar. It's like, to me, it's like, you have to connect with it. You have to connect with the thing you're using, you know, to give it a story, or to cull from its story initially. So I don't know. I mean, I can go on and on about this, but it's like, good old instruments that, especially like, in this case, it's like, this thing came from love and generosity and graciousness and all this stuff that I felt very unworthy of and still do. And it's like, so it's like, the story of this thing is just positive, that and every time I pick it up or something, it's crazy to me. So it's an amazing thing. Candy is her name.
Great name for her.
Yeah.
Red.
Yeah. Red. And that one, the Telecaster don't have a name. I don't really name guitars. Other people do.
Okay.
So, like, this one was named when I had it, and Red just became Red because
Yeah.
It's red. Well, actually, that's not true. The first gig I ever played with it, there was this girl in the audience who was wearing a red hooded sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
Red hooded sweatshirt. Adam Sandler. Anyway, but she anyway, one of the guys in the band was very taken with her and started calling her Little Red Riding Hood or something, you know, like on the way back. And that was the first gig I ever used red with. It was the first out of town gig Simo ever did. It was in Bowling Green. So initially, as a joke, it was like, oh yeah, Little Red Riding Hood. Another thing I'd forgotten. Now I remember. Now that I'm sitting with you.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's hear you play the burst.
let's do it.
Okay. JD, thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you for sharing your story and about your guitars.
Well, thank you for being a good friend all these years, and I'm honored to be here. And thank you because you've been a good pal to me. So, you know, I wish you all could know how good a guy this guy really is, because he really is like the best friend I've ever had. So I love you. All
Love
right?
you, buddy. Thanks.